Good morning. I have a message coming through that pertains to the Q1 information that I got for the year, which the message, the overarching theme for January, February, and March is posture. It's all about posture. And what I'm getting as and this is pretty cool. This has been made clear to me now. I'm going to be able to use the quarters as I presented them in the 2024 forecast videos as a framework for all the cycles that are coming this year. Obviously I started recording, on an almost daily basis in June when I went to Italy. So I haven't had a single full year to post yet. I did actually start posting in January of 2023, but not consistently. So anyway, when I was generating in prophesying mode, is that the right word? Prophesize? Doing the oracle stuff, right? I was actually given this framework, and it's every year on my channel. So anybody who has gifts, you can channel for different things. You can channel for, I've talked about the Twin Flame Collective. There are readers who specifically only transmit messages about that journey and the various cycles that people might be at within that journey. I've come to understand that my channeling is about and for creative energy and life force energy, sexual energy, balancing polarities. Everything I ever talk about will always be about these things. And the purpose of me as a channel, because it's been a lot to funnel down, right? I get a lot of information and I'm like, should I share this? Because this is a big deviation from everything I've been sharing. And then it's like, okay, we'll just keep going and seeing what comes through. But every year basically, and every 6-month chunk is going to be designed so that if you were to follow along with the videos, you will be able to execute a quantum leap within your own life, kind of alongside me, because I'm doing that. I don't just say things. Everything I talk about is stuff I'm actively putting into practice and experiencing results with, and it's not really coming from anywhere except for me just continuing to follow the scent of where everything's going and be inundated with messages on a daily basis and nightly basis in the dream space, and then translate that. So I'm on a pretty quick timeline of changes, really. And so the people who my messaging is for people who resonate with that as well. People who are able and wanting to be at the conscious forefront of everything it is that they're creating, so that they can execute these quantum leaps. So I already received every year up until 2026, which is kind of mind-blowing, because not only did I get the fact that every one is going to be a new chapter. I'm going to make playlists, actually. I could make all of them now, but there's going to be empty ones because there's no videos to put in them, because they're for 2025, 2026. And also, by the way, when I was getting all this information, I was like, are you telling me that I'm going to be recording 90-minute videos on an almost daily basis for the next 4 years? And then my guys were like, yeah, you already do it. You like it. What's the problem? And I was like, good point, touche. I do it without a whole lot. There's no resistance. This is what I like to do. I've shared this in the past, but not for a little while. I'm always talking to myself. Always. Constantly. To process things, because, this is something that I talked about a little bit with the quantum hypnotherapy healing session. But she said to me, a lot of the times with a lot of the clients who she facilitates these regressions for, they're under hypnosis. And so when they speak and they try to connect what it is that their mind has dipped into in that different brainwave state, when they try to connect through their voice, that energy, to being able to speak it and put it out so that the practitioner can hear it and continue to facilitate via questions and soft extraction of next level, just the way she did with me. I would talk about where I was. I'd be like, well, I'm in a forest, I can see my feet, and then she'd ask me questions about it. And if my voice got dim, small, quieter, then she would say, I need you to raise your voice, because what happens when you do that is that you're pulling more energy through and you're strengthening the channel via volume and the energy in your vocal cords. And that's why, if you pray, a lot of people don't even pray out loud. They don't even say things. If you say things with volume, you're able to process this energy. And so for me, speaking on the information that I get is a huge part of that. Being able to like actively activate, respond to, and acknowledge this energy. If you don't put it into words, then it's just different. So I've learned to not do that with absolutely everything. I kind of am in a meditative space, like clouds, like wind within my own mind. If I'm busy and doing something, like if I'm working, I have to let all those things go. But just like the wind, if you see, imagine the globe and the way that you can see like eyes of hurricanes or like clouds and weather like mapping and wrapping itself around just through like, you know, the currents of wind and stuff that move around the globe, it always comes back around, right? If it must, if it needs to, if it wants to be acknowledged. So there's no urgency really in translating the messages because it's like the winds that would take a kite. That's a very high frequency, high speed, high winds force, but it's steady and it's strong and it's ever present. So the strengthening of the muscle for me, which has been the biggest deal for me in 2023, is being able to tap in and remain connected to that, not get overwhelmed, be able to kind of be a part of it, and ground it into my energetic body, into my physical body, and just let it expand me and change me. But back to the posture thing. Okay, so there's a meme that I saw, I'll put it on the screen here, something about boundaries. It's like, do not make it an electric fence that shocks people, but it's like a lightly tingly thing that reminds them that you will be treated sacredly. Sacredly. Sometimes when you conduct yourself in a way that demands respect, other people don't like that because it has to, well, it calls upon them to acknowledge whatever they were doing that was asking you to potentially disrespect yourself. Not through a malicious dynamic or them asking you to disrespect yourself, but sometimes people want you to overfunction or do things, you know, or we've got people who are not taking accountability for things. And so our tendency as feeling empathic, highly sensitive people is to dip in and provide some type of relief for that, because a lot of the times if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, or you're very susceptible to feeling and understanding the emotions of others, you will be pretty well aware of why something might be happening or why somebody might be coming at you with something or whatever's going on with them, so that you almost feel it like a duty or like out of kindness or, you know, in the least regulated cases, out of obligation to come in and assist with them, even though that's not in the best interest of your energy. It more so has to do with you recognizing what is your role and what's not. And I'm not saying you can't like support people, but it's those fine little details around like posture, upright, kite and anchor. It means being able to, you know, maintain that. And what's interesting is that I've got a lot of people in my life, less and less as time goes on, but still a fair amount, almost always, that kind of like almost insist that I'm doing something wrong, or they're just a little bit questioning of my decisions and how I do things. And I get that. It's unusual. Some of my ways are not the most mainstream. And I have been dropped into this place of softness around all of it, because for the first time in my life, I'm like, I'm not hiding anything. There's no funny business about my methods at this point. I've cleared it out. I've healed. That's really special. I'm not perfect. You know, I still have things that come up where I'm like, I need to, you know, take a deep breath and think about this and respond in a way that healed Mariah would do, not whatever's going on inside right now. Because again, once you go through ego deaths, dark nights of the soul, your ego doesn't die. That's the whole thing with those things. It's like you kill the ego. I mean, no, it's part of the human experience. But the compass of the intuition and the emotions help you to override that instead of being reactive to those impulses that it provides you. Because oftentimes the ego is like this battered, bruised thing that is like a monster that morphs into our adaptive coping mechanisms out of like protection and everything. And I'm pretty well aware of what my ego's impulses are trying to protect me from now. And that's kind of the biggest thing we can do for ourselves, is kind of ask like, well, why is this my pattern? And okay, an example of this is like I've shared, because of having an abortion in 2023 and gaining and losing a pretty significant amount of weight, and my history with being unwell in the past, or having to work on my relationship to body image, body dysmorphia, and food and all of it. And I lived with my grandparents during a time when I was suffering a lot. I was in an intensive outpatient program, and I was with them, and they would just drive me in the morning, pick me up in the night. And so my grandmother in particular, she was wondering, noticing that I've, you know, been slimming down again, and just hoping that I was being healthy about it. But there's always, and maternal and grand maternal energy is always cautionary and somewhat worrisome because that's just the nature of it. But my immediate thing is like I just drop into this defensive place because I've always had to kind of stick up for myself and why I'm doing certain things that I'm doing. Not to mention, at less healed points in my journey, I did have something to protect, and I wasn't doing things, you know, in the right way. And that's according to no one else, but I knew that I still had some stuff, you know, I just couldn't face it or acknowledge it yet. And so I tried to show everybody that it was all good so that I could keep working on like what wasn't good in privacy, in secrecy. And so I had to remind myself when she's asking me about like, you know, what have you been doing? You look good, but are you healthy? And I was like, please don't worry, you know. But then I'm like, you know what? I wake up and I do a 2-minute and 15-second plank. Last time I shared this, it was only 2 minutes. See, it's gone up. Progress. Every morning I do that, you know? Like if people actually know what I'm doing, how I live, it would all make sense because I'm putting in a lot of work and I'm doing things the right way for me. So there's something around the posture thing that has to do with the internal landscape and the external landscape, but just continuing to be like a lightning rod that's moving through this space. And it's like the things, oh, okay, yeah. My guides are asking me to share with everybody that it's going to be important as often as you need to throughout the month of January and in for the first half of February. Whenever you need to, just remind yourself, affirm to the universe, say it out loud. If you're driving, if whatever's going on, say, at this point, I seal myself off of energy, whoever and however it may come to me that intends to leech the energy out of me or take something away from me. I only attract and allow mutually, you know, beneficial energies to interact with me. And I know what my energy feels like. And I ask to be protected in that space so that it is not, you know, taken away from me, and help me to be able to understand when that is occurring so that I can reinforce my energetic boundaries and continue to stay in my grounded space that remains connected. Well, that wasn't the most succinct thing to be able to like repeat, but something along those lines, okay? It's basically just asking again for the electric fence. That's not a shock to the people around you, although sometimes maybe they'll act like it is. It's more of like a light bubbly pop, like champagne bubbles, just reminding people I demand to be respected and treated sacredly. Not because I like walk on water and I'm different, but because we all deserve to be able to give that to ourselves and expect that from the people around us. And we have fallen into a society where people are just kind of, you know, willy-nilly in a lot of different kind of codependent things and stuff. And again, with like people around me insisting that there has to be something wrong with me, and me being like, I'm open to self-growth always, and making sure that I'm realizing, you know, what I've done, that how it impacts other people and what I can learn from that in order to be better next time, right? And continue to stay diligent about my impact on the world around me and the connections that I hold space in. But it was said to me somewhat recently that I would be an insecure boss's worst nightmare. I think that's an interesting thing to say to somebody, but especially because I'm like, oh, I'm in daydream mode. You want nightmare? I can show you nightmare, but I'm in daydream mode. This is golden fantasy. I haven't shown you nightmare. Just interesting to see how people receive a certain version of yourself, where if you are in a quantum way, every single second, if every single second is a moment where it's like a crossroads, an intersection with infinite options, you can do, say, feel, and act in any way you want, any second of the day, if you're alone or talking to people. Like if you were at a grocery store checking out, instead of asking you if they want your, you know, receipt, they could ask you like, have you seen a giraffe in the past 6 months? They could say anything, but it just happens to be that we tend to be in these loops where people are on autopilot and they do just ask you if you want the receipt, and then you take it and you leave. No giraffe talk, but it could happen. Sort of like if in every moment you're able, if it was possible to be a quantum computer and have your mind, your consciousness, and your desire to move that interaction along, you've scanned through everything you've ever been through and every possibility that could ever happen, and you decide what it is that you want to do and what you want to say and how you feel in a way that you feel is the best possible way forward, that honors your internal truth and does not harm another person around you. And you're like, this is the aligned action. I'm going to say it. It happens in a split second. When that's the case and you're like, no, I don't think I am doing anything reactive, and it still doesn't land well, that's when you just up the little tingly defense and you let other people feel how they feel as a result of it. And it calls into question another meme, and I'll put this one on the screen too, since I'm already gonna edit this video. In the mood to stop dancing around the wounded or unhealed parts of other people at the expense of myself, right? And it's actually a service to the people around you because it teaches them things. So that's a theme for the first quarter. Another thing I wanted to share before I end the video is something, it was a massive integration. I get full body goosebumps saying this, and a crow just flew straight over my car. So that could be symbolic crow energy, raven spirit. But I was thinking, I was processing. I've really been getting but I've been seeing visions of that past life that I mentioned in the second half of the 2024 past life about the Renaissance and being a painter, and thinking about those the upper parts of the canvases and my fascination with clouds and the beautiful palettes that emerge within the sky when the light moves down towards the horizon and we get peaches and pinks and mauves and lavender colors and light blues. That's my favorite. Like, sunset pastel is my favorite palette. It is the color of my aura. If you kind of up it in brightness and make it like iridescent, those are my colors. That's why the wordsmith stuff is all the way it is. There's a lot of intention and meaning behind the branding that I'm trying to generate. And I was sitting with that and I was thinking with that, and I actually ended up like, this was a hard sob of processing, because it shook me to my core. I was like, I make my decisions, but it's all scripted. This is miraculous, this wonderful life. I don't even know anything. What is happening, you know? Because I was thinking about being a painter, having to access the upper parts if I was working with somebody who only wanted to focus on the main body of the painting and needed somebody to fill in extra parts of the painting where it was more risky to be up high, like physically for falling or safety, but also just, filling in the periphery, especially on the upper parts. That's where the clouds are. I don't want to cry right now because I just did my makeup and it's morning. That's where the angels are. That's where the cherubs fly. And that's the imperial, right? The imperial kingdom of heaven, or the heavenly realms. Wordsmith of the imperial, I channel from the things that I see that are beyond the physical human experience, because these downloads come from the heavenly realms. And there's a lot of really beautiful light and clouds and stuff, but I was crying processing this because I was like, I like the clouds because that's what I painted. That's what I used to paint. That's what I was able to do, If I wasn't able to be an artist in a past life as an oppressed woman or get any recognition on a personal level, that was still my subject matter. The angels and the clouds. So that's really special for me, because I know for a fact that I'm going to spend the better part of the rest of my life painting angels and clouds again. But this time they'll have my name on them. So that's really special. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this information. It just hit me. Okay, and then last thing I wanted to share was about the fish tank. And I know that anybody who sees this who's been following my weird little saga for a couple of days will be like, don't talk about the fish again. So just stop watching if you don't want to hear about the fish. Yeah. So unfortunately, I had this dream, right, where I felt like the fish were tortured and I couldn't make sense of it, nor could I help. And, my dad appeared in the dream and helped me and handled the putting of the fish back into the tank, because that's something that I'm not good with stuff like that. And by the way, that rhombozoid fish tank that he brought in the dream, I had a sort of an epiphany / download around the fact that that's like the rhombohedroid crystals that are located, same shape as the crystals that are located within the pineal gland, or the third eye. So that's interesting, and I'll talk about that in a later video because I can do some screenshots around it to explain it a little bit more, but I understood a correlation with that. So unfortunately, the filters that I purchased, they're not here yet. They came from the internet, so the fish are kind of hanging in there, and I've been like talking to them and praying for them, saying like, I am gonna fix this. I understand that the carbon levels in your water is not good. My bad. I need to fix this for you guys. But I lost one of them died because it's not the right environment for them. And it was one of my little guppies, which is a relatively new fish. I just got a little school of guppies and they've all died at this point. And the remaining one, he's gonna die probably today or pretty soon. And I realized something, which is like, makes my fish caring life a little bit more challenging, because if you go into the fish store, I'm kind of expecting to talk to like a fish professional, but it's usually just like teenagers who work at Petco. And I'm like, really want to be careful about the aggressive nature of some in relation to the more passive fish. I want to make sure that the ones that are prone to needing a school, to feel like they belong in the tank. Some fish need companions of their same breed or specimen, and other kinds can fly solo. And I try to keep that in mind because you don't want an unhappy fish. I mean, really what that is that they'll die, right? It's an unsustainable balance and bioload and all of that. So I ask these questions and I try to do my best, but sometimes you can't predict like the balance of aggressiveness. Like it's those flashy pretty fish that, like, if there's another fish that's slightly pretty, they're like, I'm not the prettiest fish in the tank anymore, and they take the other one out. So I was feeding them this morning and I noticed that the remaining guppy, because now he doesn't have his buddies with him, fantail guppy, beautiful, spotted tail, almost like a beta fantail guppy. The other fish have been bullying him and they've been starting to eat his tail off while he's alive. And I like cried this morning looking at them. I was like, this is awful because he's getting eaten alive and he's gonna perish soon. And that was upsetting to me. I'm like looking at the other fish like, who's doing this? Like, you guys are bullies. But I dreamed about that again last night. And I also had some other pretty like powerful, profound dreams about like some personal stuff that I'm going through. And as I mentioned yesterday, I'm working on this kind of like blog post about some stuff. I'm gonna do another piece of writing that I'll post, but it's really only for people who are interested in it, and I just need to get it out of my system and reflect on it. And if you didn't hear me say this, I'll say it again. I hiccup a lot, but what hiccuping is, or like burping and stuff really, is like releasing energy from the body. When I hiccup, it is because something that I just said elicited a need within my body's energy to like release something. So that's what's kind of coming next. And I feel like I had maybe a message or two more about today and the energy of today, this full moon. Nope, I think that's good for now. So I hope everybody's good. No, I'm definitely forgetting something, but I have to go do things now. So I hope everybody's good. Hope everybody's doing good, and I'll see people later.